Impossible candidate. Lieutenant Maya Chen stood at the observation deck of Orbital Station 7, watching the debris field that used to be Earth's Third Fleet drift past the windows. She was 22 years old, had graduated dead last in her class at the Naval Academy just 6 months ago, and now she was one of the few officers left alive in the entire Defense Force. The coffee in her hand had gone cold hours ago, but she kept holding it anyway. Needing something to anchor her trembling fingers, the Zephon Empire had arrived 3 weeks ago with a simple message: surrender or face extinction. Earth's leaders had responded with defiance, sending their most decorated admirals and their finest ships to meet the alien threat. Those admirals were now frozen corpses floating in the void, their ships reduced to metallic confetti scattered across the solar system. The Zephons had technology that made humanity's most advanced weapons look like stone tools. Their ships moved through space like liquid mercury, reforming and adapting to every attack pattern the humans threw at them. Maya had survived the massacre at Jupiter, not through skill or courage, but through what her instructors had always called her greatest weakness: her inability to follow standard protocols. When Admiral Morrison had ordered all ships to maintain formation during the Zephon's first attack, Maya had panicked and broken ranks, sending her tiny patrol vessels spiraling away from the battle line in what looked like a catastrophic navigation failure. That moment of cowardice, as she saw it, had saved her life. The Zephon weapons had carved through the neat human formations like a blade through paper, but they had ignored her chaotic, tumbling ship as if it were space debris. Command was down to General Harrison now, a ground forces officer who had never commanded a space battle in his life. He stood in the war room, surrounded by the ghosts of empty chairs where admirals and captains should have been sitting. The promotion ceremony, if it could be called that, was the shortest in military history. Harrison looked at the dozen surviving officers, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, and spoke words that would have been laughable a month ago. "Lieutenant Chen, you're now captain of the Resilience. The rest of you will take command of whatever ships we have left. God help us all." Maya wanted to laugh or cry or possibly throw up. The Resilience was a battle cruiser, meant to be commanded by someone with 20 years of experience, not someone who still got lost in its corridors. But there was no one else. The Zephons had been methodical in their destruction, targeting command ships first, eliminating Earth's military leadership with surgical precision. What remained was a ragtag collection of junior officers, maintenance crews, and whoever else could hold a weapon. The Zephon Vanguard arrived at Earth's doorstep 48 hours later. 12 ships, each one a kilometer long and shaped like twisted ribbons of dark metal that seemed to bend light around them. Maya stood on the bridge of the Resilience, surrounded by a crew that looked at her with barely concealed terror. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Commander Torres, had graduated from the academy 3 years before her. He should have been in command, but regulations were regulations even if they were being held together with desperation and duct tape. "Captain, they're hailing us," the communications officer announced, his voice cracking. The screen filled with the image of a Zephon commander. They were beautiful in an alien way, with crystalline features that shifted and reformed constantly, never quite settling into one shape. When it spoke, the voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Humans, your resistance has been amusing, but pointless. You have one rotation of your planet to surrender. We will accept nothing less than complete submission." Maya stared at the screen, her mind racing. Everything she had been taught at the academy screamed at her to follow protocol, to respond with dignity and military bearing. But the academy had also taught her that conventional tactics against a superior force led to annihilation, and they had been right about that at least. "Counteroffer," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You leave now and we won't embarrass you in front of the entire galaxy." The bridge went silent. Torres looked at her like she had lost her mind. The Zephon commander's features stopped shifting for a moment, as if processing this unexpected response. "You dare mock the Zephon Empire? Your fleet is destroyed. Your world stands defenseless." Maya shrugged, a gesture that probably wasn't in any diplomatic handbook. "Our fleet followed the rules. I don't. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to attack us because your pride demands it. We're going to do something incredibly stupid that your advanced computers won't predict, because no rational species would try it. And then, you're going to have to explain to your empire how humans, who you've been calling primitive, sent you running home. She cut the transmission before the Zephon could respond. The bridge erupted in chaos. "Captain, what are you doing?" Torres demanded. "You just provoked them." "They were always going to attack," Maya replied, pulling up tactical displays. "But now they're angry. Angry enemies make mistakes." She turned to her crew, these frightened young officers who were looking to her for miracles. "Listen up. Everything you learned at the academy? Forget it. The Zephons have studied our tactics for who knows how long. They know every move in our playbook, so we're going to write a new playbook. One so insane that even we won't know what we're doing half the time." The first Zephon attack came exactly as predicted. Their ships moved in perfect synchronization, weapons charging in harmonic frequencies that had shattered every human shield system they had encountered. Maya watched them approach, counted down in her head, and then gave an order that would have failed her in any Academy simulation. "All ships, emergency vent atmosphere from starboard sections. Now." The human ships lurched sideways as thousands of tons of air exploded from their hulls, sending them spinning in completely unpredictable directions. The Zephon weapons, calibrated for precise targeting, fired into empty space where the human ships should have been. It was crude, wasteful, and completely insane. It was also effective. "Return fire while spinning," Maya commanded. "Don't aim. Just shoot everything." What followed was the most chaotic space battle in recorded history. Human ships tumbled through space like drunken dancers, firing weapons in seemingly random patterns. There was no strategy, no formation, no coordinated attack pattern. To the Zephons, whose entire military doctrine was based on mathematical precision and predictive modeling, it was incomprehensible. Their advanced targeting systems, designed to calculate trajectory and velocity down to the microsecond, couldn't process opponents who didn't seem to know where they were going themselves. The Resilience took hits, its hull screaming under the pressure. But Maya kept issuing orders that defied all logic. Ram that asteroid into their formation. Overload the engines and use the explosion as propulsion. Fire escape pods filled with nuclear warheads. Every desperate, ridiculous tactic that would have gotten her expelled from the academy became their survival strategy. When the dust settled, 3 Zephon ships were disabled, 2 were retreating, and the rest were regrouping, their perfect formation broken. The human losses were severe. Half their remaining ships were barely functional. But they were alive, and for the first time since the war began, the Zephons had been bloodied. The final stand, the victory celebration, lasted exactly 30 seconds before reality set in. Maya stood in the medical bay, looking at the rows of wounded, and knew they couldn't survive another attack like that. Their unconventional tactics had worked once, but the Zephons were not stupid. They would adapt. They would return with overwhelming force. And Earth had nothing left to throw at them except desperate tricks and the stubborn refusal to surrender that seemed to be humanity's defining characteristic. 3 days later, long-range sensors detected the approaching Zephon fleet. Not 12 ships this time. 400. The main invasion force, coming to finish what the Vanguard had started. Maya felt the weight of command crushing down on her shoulders as she looked at the tactical display. They had 37 ships still capable of fighting. Most of those were held together with emergency repairs and prayers. The math was simple and brutal. Each human ship would need to destroy more than 10 Zephon vessels just to achieve mutual annihilation. General Harrison connected from Earth's surface, his face grim. Behind him, Maya could see the underground command bunker where Earth's remaining leadership had gathered. Presidents, generals, scientists, all waiting for her to perform a miracle with ships that shouldn't even be flying. "Captain Chen, the Council has voted. If you believe surrender is our only option." "With respect, General, surrender isn't an option," Maya interrupted. "The Zephons don't take prisoners, they take slaves. I've been studying their attack patterns, their communications, everything we've recorded. They're not here to conquer. They're here to harvest. Every species they've defeated has been stripped of resources, including the populations. We might as well die fighting. She didn't mention the other thing she had discovered while analyzing the battle data, a pattern in the Zephon ship movements that suggested something her engineering background had noticed, but her military training would have dismissed. The Zephon ships were not individual vessels. They were components of something larger, connected by an energy field that her human sensors could barely detect. It was like looking at fingers and suddenly realizing they were all part of the same hand dot. Torres found her in her quarters at 0300, staring at holographic displays that showed the same battle from 100 different angles. She had been awake for 72 hours straight, fueled by stimulants and sheer determination. "Captain, you need to rest." "I need to find their weakness," she replied, not looking away from the displays. "Every empire that's ever existed has had one. The Mongols couldn't handle naval warfare. The Romans couldn't adapt to guerrilla tactics. The British Empire fell apart when the colonies learned to work together. The Zephons have to have something. They're technologically superior in every way," Torres said quietly. "Their ships are faster, stronger, their weapons more powerful. What weakness could they possibly have?" Maya paused the display, zooming in on a moment from their first battle. A Zephon ship, damaged by random human fire, had tried to reform its hull. For just a second, the other Zephon ships had stuttered in their movements, as if they had all felt the wound. "They're not superior in every way," she said slowly. "They're predictable, synchronized, connected." She turned to Torres, eyes bright with exhaustion and sudden understanding. What if that's not their strength? What if it's their weakness? The final battle began 18 hours later. The Zephon fleet approached in perfect formation, a wall of metal and energy that blotted out the stars. Their commander appeared on screen again, its crystalline features radiating confidence. "Captain Chen, your defiance has been noted and will be punished accordingly. Your world will serve as an example to others who might resist the Zephon Empire." Maya stood on her bridge, her ragtag crew at their stations. She had shared her plan with them, watched their faces go from disbelief to desperate hope. It was insane. It would probably kill them all. But it was better than surrender. "You know what your problem is?" Maya asked the Zephon commander. "You've been an empire for so long you've forgotten what it's like to fight for survival. You've forgotten that desperate people do desperate things. And humans? We've been desperately fighting each other for our entire history. We've gotten really, really good at it." She gave the signal. Every human ship launched everything they had, not at the Zephon fleet but at each other. Missiles, torpedoes, energy beams, all fired at their own allies in what looked like the ultimate act of madness or betrayal. The Zephon commander's features flickered in what might have been confusion. But the weapons weren't aimed to destroy. They were aimed to push, to create a very specific pattern of electromagnetic pulses. Maya had realized that if the Zephon ships were connected by an energy field, then that field could be disrupted. Not by attacking it directly. It was too strong for that. But by creating interference, white noise on a massive scale. Every human ship became a transmitter, broadcasting chaos into space. The effect was immediate and devastating. Zephon ships began to drift out of formation, their perfect synchronization broken. Some fired on empty space, others collided with their allies. The beautiful, terrifying harmony of their fleet dissolved into confusion. For the first time in their empire's history, each Zephon ship was alone, cut off from the collective intelligence that guided them. "Now!" Maya screamed. "Hit them while they're blind." The human ships, still spinning and tumbling from their own controlled chaos, opened fire with everything they had left. Without their connection, the Zephon ships couldn't coordinate their defenses. Their shields, designed to work in harmonic frequencies with each other, flickered and failed. Their weapons, meant to fire in precise patterns, couldn't compensate for the random movements of their targets. It was still a slaughter. Human ships died by the dozens, overwhelmed by superior firepower even in the chaos. The Resilience took hit after hit, entire sections venting into space. Maya held onto her command chair as the bridge sparked and burned around her, shouting orders through the smoke. But for every human ship that fell, they took Zephon vessels with them. The equation was changing. No longer was it about survival. It was about making the cost of victory too high for the enemy to pay. The turning point came when the Zephon flagship, isolated and confused without its network, made a critical error. It turned to retreat, to re-establish connection with the surviving fleet. Maya saw the opportunity and took it without hesitation. All ships ramming speed on the flagship, everyone who can still move. The 7 remaining human vessels, including the dying Resilience, accelerated toward the Zephon flagship. It was a suicide run, pure and simple. But it was also something the Zephons, in all their calculated strategies, had never encountered. An enemy that would choose mutual destruction over defeat. The flagship's weapons tore through 3 human ships before they could reach it. But 4 made it through, including the Resilience. The impact was catastrophic. The Zephon flagship, its shields down and its hull compromised, shattered like crystal under the combined mass of the human vessels. The explosion rippled through space, a miniature sun that consumed attacker and defender alike. Maya, quote, last conscious thought, as the Resilience came apart around her, was that she could see the remaining Zephon ships beginning to retreat. They were leaving. Earth would survive. She woke up 3 weeks later in a medical facility on Luna Base, missing her left arm, and with enough synthetic organs to qualify as partially artificial. Torres was there, sporting his own collection of scars and mechanical parts. He informed her that 43 Zephon ships had survived the battle and fled the solar system. Their last transmission had been a single word in broken human standard: understood. Earth had lost 90% of its space fleet. Thousands were dead. But humanity had done something no other species had managed in 300 years of Zephon expansion. They had won, not through superior technology or tactics, but through the willingness to be absolutely, completely insane when the situation demanded it. Maya Chen, the Academy's worst graduate, the youngest captain in fleet history, and the commander, who had broken every rule in the book, became the first human to receive the Galactic Council's recognition of military excellence. The Zephon Empire never returned to human space. In their historical records, they listed humanity as tactically unstable, approach with extreme caution. The Academy changed its curriculum after the war. Along with traditional tactics and protocol, cadets were now required to take a course called Unconventional Warfare and Controlled Chaos. The first lecture always began the same way. When facing a superior enemy, remember Captain Chen's first rule: if you don't know what you're doing, neither does the enemy. Maya herself never commanded another ship. She retired at 23, the youngest admiral in human history, and spent her days teaching at the academy she had once barely graduated from. When students asked her about the secret to defeating the Zephons, she would always smile and give the same answer. The secret? There wasn't one. We just refused to lose. And when you refuse to lose badly enough, when you're willing to do absolutely anything to survive, sometimes the universe gets out of your way. The Zephons expected to fight a military. Instead, they fought humans. Poor bastards never stood a chance.